Hey, this is Therese.
And this is Gretchen.
And this is At the Root of It. Hey guys, today in this episode we are talking about equitable education and advocacy with Fasil, one of our special issues coordinators. We'll discuss everything there is to know about the importance of student advocacy. So yeah. So thanks Fasil for joining us on our second episode of At the Root of It.
Thank you so much for having me.
Today we're going to talk about something that Fasil specializes in MCR, which is equitable education. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, so hey, I'm Fasil Tefera. I'm a junior at Wheaton High School, and I've been part of MCR for 2 years now. Last year serving as the Equitable Education Coordinator, and this year serving as the Educational Reform and Cultural Awareness Task Force Coordinator. So yeah, pretty much like what we do is like we in the task force we have like around 15 members, and we just like work on specific initiatives on how to get those topics like out there and like inform the community, learn, teach people how to advocate for them in their own communities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our first question for you is, what do you think of equity? Like the definition, like what does equity mean to you? And how do you think, like in an ideal world, these issue, like the idea of equity would be shown in like a school environment?
Yeah. I really love that you guys actually started with that question because I feel like there's like a lot of confusion on like equity versus equality. And how like I remember it is like I saw a picture. It's a pretty famous picture, but it had like three different students or like three different kids lined up on like platforms, and equality would be like all of them, like all the platforms being the same. Oh wait. Yeah, they were like looking over a fence, and all three of the kids were like
I know
different
exactly what
heights.
you're talking about.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. So that's exactly like what it is, just like equality being like the same thing given to every person, and then equity being when there's something that's holding you back or like, depriving you from someone else's from like the basic, opportunities, then making sure that and in our case, making sure that the county is um, fighting those barriers, right? So, like opportunity, right? Like that's a very good example because I feel like right now there's like a huge imbalance of opportunity throughout the county,
Yeah.
where there's like schools like RM, Poolsville, that have like a lot of opportunity, which also makes sense, right? But we need to make sure, right, that schools like in the DCC and NEC, but not also like Gaithersburg and Damascus, right, that have like more opportunities and more ways that they can get involved and that um, they can just, learn and
Yeah.
Yeah,
do better.
definitely. Are there any examples within your own school that you see a lack of equity in, not just like in the county?
Yeah, I would say in my own school, like there's very much like a divide of ESOL students, and I know that that's like also that's like a pretty, I would say not too specific to my school, but yeah, there's just like a huge divide of ESOL students between like the rest of us, I guess, and they like I've talked with some of them, and they just feel like left out of the community, and because of that, they don't join clubs, they don't really look for opportunities, they don't like look for anything more than school, because again, they don't really have too much a community with the full school. But yeah,
When
that's
you say
what I
that,
would
I
say.
think about like the idea that I think we as like a county really promote the idea of diversity, but I think something that comes with diversity is like community and like the ability to form a community, because diversity is really important and is really cool, but it doesn't mean anything if we can't form in a community and learn from each other. And like you said, that you saw students, like they shouldn't have to feel divided. And I don't know, I feel like as teens, it should be like there should be ways at least made by not like forced, like students should be forced to like come together, but like easy ways for people to feel more united and more included in community.
Hmm.
That's total fact. Like, in Wheaton, I would like, this is probably a bold statement, but I would say like Wheaton is probably like the most diverse school in Moco. Don't
Someone
quote
can
me on
fact
that.
check him. Oh,
No.
someone can fact check
I
him.
actually can. Wait, I got the boundary analysis explorer tool always bookmarked.
That
Yeah.
is, that is, I don't think I've ever looked at that. I'm gonna be honest, guys.
Oh, yeah, but like we just have like a really good diversity of like each group of student. Like we have Hispanics, we have Black students, we have also white students, right? We have like Asian students. Like we have just like a full array of different
Yeah,
students. And like even though I would say like it's still a majority of like Blacks and Hispanic, there's still like, but even though that there's so many of these different groups, at lunch you see the separation, right?
yeah,
Like my friends, most of them are Black or Hispanic, right? The white kids, they eat by themselves, like stuff like that. So it's like making sure, and I feel like the only way we could like really fix that is starting young, right? Because in my elementary school and in my middle school, most of them again were Blacks and Hispanics, right? So who do I gravitate to? Blacks and Hispanics. That's all I've known all my life. So it's like making the elementary schools and the middle schools way more diverse so that at a young age we're able to expose ourselves to, every single type of person.
Yeah, can I pop in with a statistic? Because I
go
found it.
for it, girl.
So, according to the MCPS Interactive Boundary Explorer tool, so I don't know if this information is like totally up to date, but it was within the last like year or two. If we're talking about ESOL, it says here that Wheaton High School is 21.66% ESOL kids. And let's see if I can look at more demographics. I think y'all are a little bit over capacity. Um,
Well,
yes, y'all are. Side note, y'all are very diverse. Let me see if I can look at like specific.
while she's talking about that, I would also like to. I remember the first time. Okay, well, Shari, shout out to Shari, our MCR president. I remember her talking about MCR for
Sure.
years, but I think that, especially during the pandemonium, I felt an urgent need to be a part of advocacy. Like, I remember when that light bulb clicked and I was like, I need to make a change. Like, literally, what's that song called? Like Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror? That was me. That was me when I saw the MCR rolling out. And so that was like my moment where I was like, oh, I want to make a change. So what was your moment when you were like, this is my moment to go and apply for something I haven't tried yet?
That's actually so funny because I would like very similar to that. Like, I had no clue of student advocacy. Like, I was not an MCJC kid. I didn't really know anything outside of my school on the county level, on how I can do anything much for advocate. So, yeah, but I remember beginning of COVID. First it was boredom, then it was like, like the whole thing like with Black Lives Matter and a lot of like different groups coming out to like actually speak about, their problems.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that at like a mass level before, right? Like I've heard of marches and I've heard of like small, like, things happening in our school, but um seeing it at that massive level, like even nationally, was like crazy and made me like really think of like the inequities in my life and in my community. Um, and then I, yeah, and then I joined MCR, like on a whim. I honestly did not know how like the full like retrospect of MCR.
Yeah.
I just saw the apps and I was like, let me join.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'm here. So yeah, and like the amount of like opportunities that I've been given through this organization is crazy, right? And it's just like with advocacy, I feel like most of it is like by mouth and like telling other people how to get involved, what they can do, like uplifting other people. And yeah, I think like I've yeah, MCR has done a really good job with that. Kind of went off the question.
No, you're
I
fine.
think I answered it somewhere.
These are the vibes. I have like two separate like points. One is like um what is like okay, maybe I should write this down. I might write this down. But what are like I know like as like a first like a newcomer like just like maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, like it was really weird to me because I was like MCR is like the way I viewed MCR was like, oh my gosh, like these are like student government, like mini senator. No offense, I love MCR. Obviously, I'm here, but like mini student like governors basically. But like when you're in MCR, you're kind of like, wow, like these people actually genuinely are so passionate about what they're working on. So like, what's advice that you would give to people outside of MCR about joining and just like how you feel as a part of MCR?
Yeah. Um, I would definitely say, kind of thinking here, is like you're definitely right. Like a lot of the MCR students are definitely very passionate on like an array of different things and different issues. But from the outside, I'll say like stick close, right? Because like the executive board is very like it's small, right? It's like 100 members for like 160,000 kids. So not everyone can like be part of it, but
Yeah,
understanding that like MCR is not like the end all be all, right? There's so many other student organizations that are available that do a more um, specific that fight like specific issues,
yeah.
and just like if you don't get into the exec board, that's not the end of the world. Like, stick close. We say the opportunities. We have a lot of organizations that we work with. Um, so yeah, just like, stick
Yeah.
close and keep your ears open and jump on those opportunities.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, at least personally, I feel like people, this is my personal opinion, but that people think that one thing has to be end all be all. But like all of our small contributions really do add up to like our total goal, which I guess in this case, what we're talking about is equity. And so it's okay if like one organization doesn't like, I guess, accept you in this case of what we're talking about, because there's so many different ways for you to fight the fight
Yeah,
without it being
so
this.
many.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
And
also, oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I want this is the last time I interject about this. I
Okay.
promise, but I found it, and I would like to correct the record. Y'all are not over capacity.
Oh,
You have
Okay.
a 98.2 utilization rate. But if you look at the racial dissimilarity rate, I compared it to my school, Wooten. So you have a smaller one compared to my school, which means that yes, Vasil, you were right.
Okay.
You are statistically
period.
diverse. So you can see these down here. Yeah.
I think we should definitely add these in so that people actually know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Whoa, that is crazy. Just look
Yeah.
at the percentage of farm kids, bruh.
Hmm.
That like the 48
Okay,
versus
I'm
5,
sorry that I'm asking what farm is, but what is farm?
Oh, it's like
free and okay, it means free and reduced meals.
yeah,
So it's like
Oh, okay, I
where
see.
like the where the government like
Yeah,
MCPS helps pays for like
government
lunches and
program
stuff.
that
yeah.
helps students from low income households
Yeah.
get meals. Yeah, but MCR doesn't endorse this site or anything, I don't think. But like, if you are a student in MCPS and you
I'm like,
want to know
oh,
what's happening with your demographics or your utilization rate, which is basically just your capacity of your population at your school. You want to compare all grade levels. I'm sorry, like high school, middle school, elementary school. I would definitely recommend checking out the Boundary Analysis Explorer tool. And you can check out Wheaton's stats so you can see what we're talking about.
I love that tool. I used it so much last year, especially
Me
like
too.
when it came out. Yeah.
so I also wanted to touch on going back to 2020, at least for me, traumatic for all of us, but specifically mental health. But when it comes to like being black, and I guess how you took care of your mental health during that period. I know it was hard for a lot of us, things that we had to see being on social media, which I will like touch on the social media, but just yeah, how you took care of your mental health during that time.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you, like before COVID and like before all of that, um, like I wasn't really interested in like black culture, like like black how do I say this? Like black activism, and after like seeing those like always pop up on your phone, right? There's always like someone else dying. There's always some other crisis. There was always
Yeah.
something else and another like inequity that was being placed. And first, like it was definitely anger, right? Because it's like that could be me, right? And it's like, how are these people think that it's okay to do this? And at the scale that they most people did that at. Um, and then I think that anger turned into shame for a little bit, because like it was very like sided thing. Like it was not like there wasn't like a middle. It was polar opposites, right? And yeah, that kind of created like uh I kind of understand where both of you sides are coming from in a way, but I don't know. That just resulted in shame. But how I dealt with it, um, I didn't. Like
I'm like,
for most of
amazing.
it, yeah. Like especially in the beginning, like I tried to like push it under the rug, like try to like get off social media, get off the news, like just stay to myself. But after, I think that turned into, since I was like so out the loop after a while of like that,
Yeah.
I wanted to be like after I had like recharged or whatnot, and I was getting back on. There's so many things that happened in just that time, uh, that like I had to actively, like teach myself about these things and actually like go back, not just on the news, but like actually what's happening and like the actual background behind it. And I think that's like where awareness came, and it was like, you know, that thing. But yeah, did I handle it well? Not really, but we live, right?
Yeah.
And I guess.
I feel like I don't think anyone could. Like, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I don't think anyone could. I like remember just being like, I guess like the first week that like the moment like the movement really started like riling up again. I kind of like, or the moment that we all saw the video, or not all saw, but like, I remember just staying home, like a paranoia built. I've never felt so paranoid in my life. I did not want to go out. Like anxiety, like rose up, and I think that's why an important part of like activism, especially when being an activist for a marginalized community or you are a part of one, is like wellness, and I guess in this case, like Black wellness, because specifically in like the Black community, I feel like the idea of like constantly having to be strong, but like when you're constantly seeing like all these infographics like, oh, this percentage of people are most likely to die, and you're like, okay, well, great. Just like being able to take care of yourself and be like what you did, even though it's like it was hard for you, like being able to step back and be like, oh, I need a break from all the like things that I'm seeing, and I need to like breathe, and I need to like just take a break. But also touching on what you said about like um you weren't into like Black activism at first. I feel like at least my interpretation of that is like the idea that we are Black, but like we just are, if that makes sense. Like it already is a part of us. So it's not something that we think of like second, I guess. At least
Yeah,
that's my personal opinion of it. Is like I'm Black, I've been Black, but until someone is like actively like targeting me, is not like I won't think of it until someone's actively targeting me. So I guess like we didn't need to fight the fight until someone like pointed out how much we do need to fight the fight.
exactly. Exactly. And again, like I grew up in like a very like much like minority my minority majority school, right? So most of my friends were Hispanic, and Black. So I there wasn't like much inequity in my school when it came like at least race wise, because like there wasn't really, you know, anyone to like, we were all like minorities, right? So yeah, like I never thought that like, well, I've heard those things happen, but it wasn't like straight to my face that I was like, this is a problem and we need to fix it now, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
And I think that social media, especially during that time, played like a huge part. Like I said, like infographics were really like everyone was going on Canva and making an infographic every single second of the day. So that is leading into the question, how do you think that social media affects activism? And like, what do you think are like the pros and cons of using social media for activism?
yeah, yeah, that's a very like lots of pros and lots of cons. When it comes to pros, like I would definitely say, like it gets your message out, right? Like, it's there's so many people on Instagram, there's so many people on Snapchat, that if that post garners attention, um, those issues are like getting very much amplified. And there's no other way of doing that really. But I would say like the biggest con, with like those infographics and stuff like that was people were kind of taking it as like fact, first of all, and they weren't doing like their background research on it. Because like you were saying, like people were making Canva every second of the day. Do you think they had time to be like, you know, like all up in the internet, you know, doing all that? No. And on top of that, it's like a very summarized version, right? So it's like it's really important after you see something that like really um affects like you know, like and really like how do I say this? Like really turns something in you.
Yeah.
It's really important to like go back and like do the research and actually get informed. Um, because yeah, those five slide, like how much information can you really put in there?
Those
Like,
5 slides.
come on.
I'm like, so true. This is a separate question, but what experiences stick out to you from your activism? Wow, I can't say words. Your activism, and also like what are like projects that you've been doing in MCR that you have been really proud of, or that you're working on that do focus on um, working on equity and equitable education?
Yeah. So again, like last year, when I was like more, you know, like last year when it was like just educational equity,
Yeah,
it was most of it was like informing, right? Because the only way to lead to change, the first step, I believe, is awareness, getting the public to know those issues, right? And I think we effectively did that. Like now, so many people know what the opportunity gap is. A lot of people know what the boundary analysis is, right? A lot of people understand SROs, right? What SROs, CROs have been doing. And even though we couldn't make like an official stance on SROs, yeah, I just want to say I'm totally against SROs. We need police officers out of our schools. That is a no thing. And that's like kind of jumping back to the mental health thing because, yeah, we need to be at a more like offensive play and making sure that our students are better here, you know, than trying to
also he
um,
pointed at his head,
what
he
was
said better mentally.
that? Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah. But yeah, like I would say that this year, like again, like it was more about like, you know, informing, and making sure that there's awareness on things that you can do and also like testifying options. Uh, you know, like because I feel like testifying is like one of the best things um you can do, I feel like, in this county because you're directly going to the decision makers and being like, yo, this is what we need to do. Like, you know, like these are my
Yeah.
problems, these are my community's problems, and how are we gonna fix them, you know? Um, so I feel like just yeah, I feel like those were my biggest things. When it comes to experience, um, and this is kind of circling back to before where we were talking about like opportunities and making sure like stick close opportunities will come, is like even though like I got into the exec board, like again, I was more into like the educational equity side and that type of side. And as much as I love advocacy, like you can only do so much, right? Like screaming
Yeah.
and advocating, right? I feel like activism is kind of like the next step to advocacy because like you're making direct actions and stuff like that. And it was actually Hana Looney. Shout out to Hana
Shout out to
that
Hana.
that told me about steps students towards equitable public schools. Um, and like I joined and like, it's not even joined. I went to a meeting and like it was like that sense of like, hey, like this is like where I needed to be. Because they definitely focused more on one, like equitable education and two, how to like more on that, how can we like really make a change like right now? Um, and yeah, but if I
Yeah.
answered your question, sorry, sorry.
Sorry, for special issues is outreach. Going back to social media, actually, if you were in special issues last year, I remember I was a media deputy, and I remember making being one of the people who made graphics advertising your task force. And so do you remember? I believe the Instagram like for special issues in MCR was created last year. Um, do you know anything about that?
I want to know. I want to say it was created this year. I'm pretty sure it was created this year.
Hmm. Oh,
Oh, well,
Yeah, wait. Like I can like go back and like check
like
like the
I hope
last.
that is not on me, guys.
Oh, well, I thought it was last year because I think it kind of goes back to that thing about,
You're right. It was last
employing
year.
kids, through different ways, like talking about word of mouth versus like social media and how we do outreach in MCR with our emails and everything, and reaching more kids. And I I would love to see more posts from all of MCR advertising the departments because I feel like the infographics being constant and everything is a whole different conversation. But I do feel like social media has some pluses, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I did check. It was last year. So yeah, whoever said hope that's not on me, I think y'all good. But but yeah, no, I definitely agree on like um that social media is still like a very good asset on getting people informed. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like okay, to be honest with you, and no hate to special issues. I love special issues with to death. All right, to death. Kenny and Jesse, best directors, objectively. But
Oh,
I
well,
would but I would say that where was I going with this? But I would say that like yeah, we didn't like utilize the Instagram as much. And I think it's because like it was kind of like self-run. So it was like and yeah, like Canva's hard, bro. Like this year, like in my SGA, I like make like we do like weekly slides and stuff like that. And I've been like the one doing that. And yeah, Canva's not easy, especially to learn. It's like it's really bad. As in now, okay, low-key like pro, like to be honest with you, PR
I got
team might
Canva Pro.
Yeah,
for real.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I think it's time.
now splurging. Oh my god. Yeah, the ever since you told me that you make those schedules on the Instagram, I always look out for them. I'm like, oh, did you make this one?
Thank you, thank you. I actually didn't make this week's because like yeah, elections are one out next week. But yeah, most other weeks I did.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sorry, I like blinked out. I'm thinking about election day. Election day, this is obviously coming out after elections, and he probably, I don't think we're going to allow him to talk about it because we don't know what's going to happen, and this is going to come out later. But you guys, remember to vote. If you're listening to this, please vote. I know that these are student elections, but they are very, very important. And if you want to represent something or represent a topic, please run. Like,
Mhm.
please
I
run.
second that 100%.
No, actually though, like
Because,
voting, like there's a reason why that's so important in this country because like I feel like that's the most important, right? Like in democracy is like voting, getting your voice out, and like even though this is like school, like school election, like students and
yeah,
stuff like that's not really that important. I think it like plays as a ground form of some sort. I don't know if that's the right word. Of like
A foundation.
exactly like the
Yeah.
foundation of like actual like change or whatnot.
Mhm.
Even though I would not say that is not me saying though that what we're doing is not creating change. It's not what I meant. Just like like more on like
Wait.
federally.
I'm so okay, guys. I do not second that statement. I think what we're doing is creating change,
Yeah.
even if it is
Wait,
small.
no, that's what I said. That's
Oh,
what I meant.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Guys,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. Sorry, you're like, sorry to our listeners.
Guys, I'm sorry. I be
Sorry.
getting, I be like mixing up my words
I keep
sometimes.
zoning out, so then I come back to the conversation, and I'm like, wait, did I just catch what he was saying? I'm sorry, Fasil.
Maybe that should be the episode name.
I wanted to go on lighter topics since this kind of went like a little shady. Favorite MCR like memory or like person or like thing to do.
Yeah. Favorite MCR memory, like most of it was virtually, so like
Oh, that's so true.
yeah. So I think I'm gonna like chill for next year, and then make my decision there. But favorite person MCR, um, I would. I feel like Hannah Looney. She was
She
actually my
is such a queen.
such a queen. She was like my big sister mentor. We had that last year. And yeah, she just like helped me any way she could. And she was like just so kind and welcoming. Um, and she's like not like the stingy type, like she would like get you hip about the opportunities. And she'll like go further and like actually like motivate you and make sure that like, hey, did you do this? Like, hey, did you
Yeah.
no no no.
Yeah. She's
So
not a
exactly. So she did, especially my first year, she definitely like looked over me a little bit, and just like always checked up on me. And that was always the best.
Hana is definitely someone that like, oh, I love her. I love her TikToks. She is definitely someone that like wants to see the change and like she inspires me. Like she changed my whole view on like, okay, we're not gonna talk about SMOB, but she really influenced my view on like just student member of the board and like the power we have as kids to like actually do stuff. Like,
Yeah.
have you seen like the cereal boxes? Like, what's it called? Like loopholes.
Yeah.
That is so. I know that's part of like the period project thing,
That's been her
but
thing forever
but
though.
that's
That's
like
always been her
so.
issue.
Oh, sorry. The video just converted. Sorry. um, but it's literally so cool and like inspiration. I love it.
Yeah.
Facts.
Um, I also say personally, I don't think I have a favorite person or I
She's
have.
like, I hate everybody.
Oh my god. My favorite person because I have a favorite
Yeah, we can
person.
all say it. I think we're gonna go with Gretchen.
Really?
This is because this is like what does this count as? I guess my first year as PR director. I am a newbie, and half the time I do not know what I am doing. Guys, please don't listen to this and think I am like crazy. But sometimes I just don't know what I'm doing. And sometimes it's really nice to have really supportive people that are helpful. Also, Michelle and Shiri, besties, also very supportive. Well, give me very good constructive criticism, but also very supportive. And yeah, I love this community of, student advocates who really advocates. Yeah, advocates who really support you. Gretchen,
Mhm.
you can go.
Oh, yes. But you said me first. Thank you. I love both of you, but I do have
Oh, okay.
I love y'all, but I have a very specific answer, and that is Zoe. And she's not an MCR anymore, but I was
Oh,
an MCJC kid. I was an MCJC in eighth grade. And back when I was in eighth grade, Zoe was running for SMOB. And I met her when I was testifying in front of the board, or no, she wasn't running for SMOB in eighth grade. She was running in seventh grade. And that's when I met her, like at the end of seventh grade. I met her when I was testifying in front of the county council. And she was such a guide for me. She was so sweet. And she really, I feel like I would probably still have applied to MCR just because I loved MCJC. But I feel like she was one of the people that made me really fall in love with advocacy. Just like not student orgs, not all the system of it, just like fall in love with the whole just feel of activism and getting your voice heard.
No,
So
yeah, Zoe's is great. Zoe's actually great. I worked with her with like at the with the Link campaign.
cute.
And she was just always like so like like first of all she knew what was up. Like
Yeah.
she was so informed and
Hmm.
like I remember her whole like the her she went for SMOB, right? And I remember like her like taking the transportation like taking the transit all over and like when I tell you, like, I felt so like I loved her so much for that because like I take the bus everywhere. Well, not anymore, not as much because like COVID and all that, but I used to take the bus everywhere, and that was like what I like relied most like transportation on. And in like middle school, um, that like I remember mornings I couldn't take the bus. I every single time like I would have to find like scour my house for like $2 to pay for that bus fare. And like seeing someone that like understood that and like was really fighting, I was like, yo, she knows what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That election was a really good for SMOB was a really good example of representation of schools because it was Zoe and she was from Clarksburg against Nate Tinbite who's from Kennedy. And I think last year in MCR we didn't have any kids from Kennedy. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I when I think about like our last like handful of SMOBs, that's something that I always like think about.
I actually
Yeah.
have a list. I
He has
actually
a
have a
list.
list
Yeah.
of the how many students are there in MCR per school. So
Hmm.
the lowest is Sherwood, 2 people, Seneca, 3, Magruder, 3, Watkins Mill, 3, QO, 3, Gaithersburg, 5, Kennedy, 3, Einstein, 3, Damascus, 4, Rockville, 4, Northwood, 4, Wooten, 4, Blake, 5, PB, 5, Wheaton, 5, Springbrook, 6, Northwest, 6, Blair, 6, Clarksburg, 7, Whitman, 7, BCC, 7, WJ, 7, Churchill, 8, Poolesville, 14, and then RM, 15.
Oh, wait.
So yeah,
I actually was looking at the other day at Poolesville and RM's numbers. It is I do want to point
I
out
never
it
noticed
like
this.
goes up or down depending on where you like are in the county, which is definitely an interesting thing to look at going back to the map with the Explorer tool if we're looking at the different schools. Um
Also, I would just like to specify that we're not saying that this is like a good or bad. We're just
yeah,
acknowledging the different, like the amount of different
yeah.
schools that we have in our county and the way that the diversity is increasing.
yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, at
And
least like, cause yeah, I do remember last year that there was, I'm I'm pretty sure it was Kennedy. I don't want to say 100%, but there was one school that had no representation, and there was a few that had like one or two. Um, So yeah, no, there's definitely like this year there was definitely an increase in numbers. And yeah, like I feel like there was an uproar like last year of like representation, you know. And I even remember like um we me and like a group of people, Alan, Jaslyn, and Mauricio, we like wrote a few resolutions to try to get like better representation and also try to get officers to not be able to run for SMOB. Um, because yeah, but yeah, but it's just like cool to see how it's like changing over time, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, these numbers would have not looked like this 5 years ago. Like
mhm,
5 years ago, there would have been a lot of schools that were zero, you know. So
mhm. Yeah. I remember Twitter being really mad about that, about
I feel like
MCR's.
Twitter is always mad.
Yeah, yeah.
Twitter always has a problem.
Yeah, also I've heard another explanation for like the number of people in MCR from schools also being like um if you're closer to the Carver Center, like you know how RM is like it shares a zip code with the Carver Educational Services Center, which is where we like host our meetings, the Board of Ed meets. Um like just because they're right there and they're like neighbors that created like a lot of opportunities. Because if we're also thinking about like distance and transportation, it's hard for some kids to like come to a lot of stuff that's in like Rockville if they live farther away and maybe they don't have their own car, so they have to take a bus, and then that's annoying.
I also think that's
So
an important part of like equity. Now that you bring it up, like I think the Zoom really changed everything because I think it's, even though, like, if it is, this is alleged, like, we're going to say this is allegedly, but if it is about how close people are to the Carver Center, then it raises the importance of, like, like that's why virtual Zoom was so important, because so many different people were able to access it and finally go to these meetings and see what's happening in MCR. And people should never be limited because of where they live, because people that are farthest away usually are the ones who are most affected by the things that we are doing or the things that are in the county, and it's unfair if they aren't able to participate.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you guys were
You can
saying.
disagree. It's
Yeah,
okay.
but like, look, right? Um, Wheaton's not that far from the Carver Center. Rockville's not that far from the Carver Center. I feel like it's only really RM that gets that privilege. Um, and yeah, like, because Wheaton does not have a lot of representation, and it has not had a lot of representation in the past, right? So I don't think that's truly fact. Like, Puzil is the second highest, and how far? Like, they're not
That
nowhere
is
close, right?
that is
So
100% why I said allegedly, because I do not know where these schools are located.
oh yeah, we're not saying that this
I
is
personally don't know
the
where
end all
these,
be all, but like it people have
or
said
we're not saying that this is that at all.
yeah.
Just
so yeah, for RM, I
if we
feel
have to cut
like
this out.
I still think though that RM, like, it makes sense why you guys are like the biggest school. Because like again, like you guys are right there to like the legislation, like, and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like making it,
Yeah.
changing it
Yeah,
now
but
to
once
make it
again,
more
yeah,
equitable.
equity matters. All of our schools should be represented equally in this student
Yeah.
body when we're making change.
Yeah. There's another detail sometimes people bring up. I'm just bringing up all of them. Sometimes it's about the language being inaccessible, and not just like English versus non-English, but like also the way that we talk in these spaces using all of these like terms and acronyms sometimes makes it harder. Cause like I'll be talking to a kid and I'll be like boundary analysis or like COGRA or BOE, and they don't know what that means. They don't, it's if it's just like a regular kid who's not involved with this stuff. So it's the little things.
I
Yeah.
guess, yeah. And I would
Agree.
like to expand on this topic and possibly allow this to be our like final closing topic if you guys are okay with it. But like language and accessibility is so important. I like sometimes I'll be in MCR meetings and I'll just like people will be talking about stuff and I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, or like just in general, in any like professional type of like setting, I'm like, this language is not accessible to like the average person. I don't understand what people are talking about. I have people like I'm friends with who go to different schools and they're like, what is that? Like, what are you even talking about? Or I'll have even adults who are like, what are you talking about? And just like, if we want people to be a part of like making change, we have to make sure that what we're putting out, like they can actually understand, not in like I'm not saying like in a demeaning way, because like personally, a lot of MCR language before I was a part of MCR, I was like, I do not understand what you guys are talking about, or you guys could have said this in like such a like a simpler way for people to access it. And like I feel like just because language is like considered to be like higher or more advanced doesn't make it a more effective way of communicating a message.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all just kids, so I have to remember that.
Facts. Facts. And like what you were saying about like this is your first year in as a director and like you barely know anything that's happening. Bruh, last year that was my first year in like MCR. That was first year as an equity, like leading my own task force. I had no clue what I was doing. And that was like the first year too that the MCR had like task forces.
Yeah.
So like had no clue the words that people were saying, like the opportunity gap, like okay, actually okay, I'm pretty sure I knew what the opportunity gap was. But like the boundary analysis I didn't know too much of. SROs I didn't know too much of, right? But I think yeah, it's definitely our job as student leaders to make sure that these like, that people know what SROs are, that people know
Yeah.
what the boundary analysis is, right? And I think, like, especially with SROs, like, I think it's like about the magnitude, right? Like the share factor too, right? So uh, SROs has been a very big like sensitive subject the past few months, and like it's my AP World teacher was talking about it the other week, right? And it's like really cool to see how how like student leaders and how us in advocacy can honestly like push that out, right? Push like the information out, make sure that they're getting people are getting known about these issues, and they're actually like
Yeah.
getting talked in classes and then with discussions and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely important to make sure that they know what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
And I also want to say, like, no matter specifically for that topic, just because I'm Sarah podcast, but like no matter what side you're on, like I think clear and factual information is so helpful in like allowing people to like fully form their opinions because like yeah. And I think we see that in our like a broader sense in society with so many issues. Like people are so like uninformed because I feel like we live in like a very like at least like me, like I have the opportunity to like be privileged in the way that I like the what how do I explain this? Like for example, like okay, I need an example. JSTOR. JSTOR when they have like hundreds of different academic papers and like I'm reading the academic paper and for the most part I understand that. Okay, research papers. Like being able to understand the information that is coming from these research papers. There's a ton of words in there that should sometimes I'm just like, why are these words here? Like they don't like there's no
The
purpose.
source, that's
Like, yeah, literally like dictionary, like every single second. But like just because I understand this information does not mean that someone else will be able to understand this information. And like being able to like properly give people like the right information because I think especially in America, you can see like the opportunity gap and like just like a lot of inequality because we as like or like at least like I feel like when you're like in a very privileged like standard, like I feel like the information you give out is made for a privileged audience and not people who might not like have the privileges to understand what you're talking about, if that makes sense. Guys, I'm trying not to get canceled.
Okay, we got what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
And bro, no, chill. All of our intentions are good, okay? So like, chill with the canceling. Like,
I'm
if we
like,
say something wrong, like, don't
listeners,
be scared to say something in my DMs, but like, just
yeah,
please don't bully me, bro. Oh my
listeners,
God.
don't cancel us. We're just trying to get like we're just trying to say what we gotta say, okay? Don't bully us. We'll
Oh, for
have a
real.
whole Q&A section for you guys to talk to us, but don't bully us.
We are. That's such a good idea.
I know. No, no.
Put that on the spot, or did we talk about that in a meeting and I wasn't paying attention?
No, I came up with that after the last meeting.
You should have texted me. That is such a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I do think that's true though about like what you're saying. Like, I haven't actually not really like thought about that too deep, but like, yeah, that's definitely true. Like having with that like imbalance or with them not under like with students not being able to
When
understand.
we're not able to like explain. Like I get what you're
You brought up
saying.
canceling, and now everyone's heart is rushing. It's like that. No, yeah, no. Actually, I forgot what I was gonna say. Let's
No,
just.
No,
so
but yeah,
that language is accessible to us. Is that what y'all are trying to say?
yeah, language is
Yeah,
accessible to us.
And that's
And
where our
I'm
privilege
just
is.
like trying to get like the point. Like it's not like oh we're stupid or not, or like someone's stupid or not. Like my brother. Okay, my brother. This is a perfect example. My brother. He grew up in Cameroon. Cameroon is in the continent of Africa, guys. It's a country. Okay, great. So he grew up in Cameroon and he came here and he started in high school and then like of course like he is a STEM type person and reading was not his strong suit. So for example, if I'm explaining something to my brother, like as oh okay, as someone who grew up in like who has been here since birth and like has just grown up here, I will probably understand more than my brother will, not because he's stupid, but just because like that difference in understanding the English language. So so like just like for example, like having information that like my brother can understand and I can understand so that he's able to form proper decisions. Where was I going with this? I don't know. The point is we need to have equitable information.
Yes.
Yeah,
That yeah, equitable
exactly.
information, guys.
Yeah, and like easy to understand, like digestible. Because like
Digestible.
yeah,
Yeah.
like if you don't understand what you're fighting for, you're not gonna fight for it. Like
Here, that's it. That's the quote. We can
Yeah.
end. That's the quote. It's over.
It's for the trailer.
The trailer. Period. We're done. That brings us to the
Yeah.
end of this episode. Thanks to Fasil for joining us. Where can our listeners find you?
you can find me on Instagram at Fasil Tefera, underscore, right? That's the bottom thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could shoot me an email, fasiltefera03
Don't
at
bully him.
gmail.com. Yeah, no, I don't want any bullying on my Gmail, okay? Instagram is fine. Go ahead.
In the comments.
Exactly. But yeah, those are like the best.
Yeah, and go follow our MCR account for more digestible, equitable information. We hope that this discussion, this very eventful, very fruitful, very exciting discussion, helped you guys understand more about our our organization and about getting to the root of equitable education and equitable things in general.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for listening.